Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Batwoman Season 1 review series, and today I am going to be talking about episode 15, which is called Off With Her Head. Literally. This episode was quite dark. Some scenes were a little bit gory. We had a real game changer of a moment in this episode, and we saw something that was very bat-like, so to speak. Rachel Scarsden, as always, owns every scene she's in as Alice, and yeah, this was a really good episode. Certainly made up for episode 14, and the game-changing moments that I'm talking about really changes the dynamic of the Batwoman character and the approach of where the character goes next going forward. And it is interesting and something that happens I didn't really expect, but I will get into that momentarily. So anyway, let's not waste any time, let's get right to it. Let's talk about episode 15, Off With Her Head. So we see in a flashback to the day of the accident, we see the Kane family talking about Kate and Beth's bat mitzvahs. Their mum Gabby gives them necklaces with their red birthstones which match their earrings, telling them that they signify all of the emotions they're going to have to balance as adults. Yeah, I think that's a bit late for that for Alice, as far as I'm concerned. So we cut to the present day and we see Alice finds Mouse hooked up to Scarecrow's fear toxin in an empty house which he reviews used to belong to the Queen. Now, we've seen Scarecrow being referenced a number of times throughout this season, and I'm very surprised that Jonathan Crane hasn't actually appeared. I mean, we see his fear gas being used, we see him being referenced, and his influence is felt throughout the course of this season and in certain episodes, even going back as far as the Elseworlds crossover event, and he's never appeared. Very, very surprised that Scarecrow hasn't appeared. He should appear. I mean, I've always been a big fan of the Scarecrow. He's one of my favourite Batman villains, certainly in my top 5 favourites of all time, and I'm very surprised that he's not showed up yet, but hopefully that will change one day. So the Queen is revealed to be August's mother. Mouse says that the fear toxin was to help him unlock his greatest fear, which is Alice, of course. He chains her to a chair and hooks her up to the toxin, which causes her to hallucinate. Now this is where things really get good. So we see in a flashback, we see the mother arriving to August's house, hooked up to an oxygen tank, and immediately takes a liking to Alice. She begins to express jealousy about how young and beautiful Alice is, and then has a go at her for making tea incorrectly. She begins to abuse her, pouring hot tea on her hands and chopping off her long hair and pushing her around. You see, the thing with someone like Alice, it is easy to hate her because she does some very despicable things, as we saw like a few episodes before the crisis where Stephanie Kane was murdered and poisoned. But then you look back and you see all the crap that Alice has been through as a child, and in some ways you can't help but feel sorry for her. I mean, she's still evil, but at the same time, what makes her a very interesting villain is that even though she's evil, some of it is justified, and it's very difficult for her to go back to how she used to be because a part of her died as a child. And it's good stuff here. And Rachel Scarsden as Alice, as I've said, she's probably one of the best things, if not the best thing, that I've enjoyed the most out of season 1 of Batwoman. Anyway, so back in the present day, Alice begins to remember these traumatic events and tries to frantically search through the house for cream. She is led to a locked freezer which August tells her to ignore. So in the present day, August's mum tells Alice that nobody cares about her. She's visited by visions of Batwoman and Jacob, who fight each other in front of her. but ultimately agree that she isn't worth saving, and they leave her. Now, if you didn't see this episode for the first time, and if you didn't know who the Scarecrow was or what he was about, you probably would have thought this was real. That's how good these scenes were. And the way Rachel Skarsten's able to capture the look of fear and sadness is just top notch, and she owns this episode once again. So we see Alice tries to make it out of the cellar, but the door is locked. She decides she can't do this anymore and breaks glass from a nearby window to try and kill herself. Just then her father, the real Jacob, arrives and he comforts her. We also see in a flashback August's mum begins to wear Gabby's earrings, which leads Alice to the locked freezer. She opens it and finds Gabby's severed head inside. Ugh. She then goes to August's mum, lighting her oxygen tank on fire and using it to kill her. See? I told you. This episode was pretty damn dark. Meanwhile, we see Batwoman helps a woman being attacked by a mugger. She then finds August handcuffed and passed out by the bat signal with a note from Alice to ask about Mummy Dearest. Kate invites Jacob to help with August and confirms to him that Alice isn't dead. She also tells him that August was impersonating Dr. Campbell just as August awakes. Kate asks about Mummy Dearest, and August explains how he manipulated Mouse with a fear toxin and how she'll die or completely lose her sanity if she's not saved soon. August explains to them how his mother helped cause a lot of Alice's trauma, and August suggests that Alice left the Mummy Dearest note to motivate Kate to kill him, but she swears she'll never kill. Yeah. Won't spoil it just yet. He asks for a glass of water, which he breaks, using the shards to stab his neck. Luke finds Mary in her underground clinic, and they decide to team up to follow a lead on Beth's murderer. This leads them to a junkyard where we find a car registered to August's mum with the gun that killed Beth inside. Getting good, it's getting good. Kate calls Mary as Batwoman and asks for help in closing the gash in August's neck. She ultimately uses a staple gun to close the wound. August later wakes up and Kate gets him to tell her Alice's location, which she passes on to Jacob. Meanwhile, Kate gets August to admit that he shot Beth because he thought it was Alice, down to the necklace that matched Gabby's earrings. As August explains, his mother wanted him to transplant Gabby's face onto her own. This upsets Kate, who loses it and chokes out August and ultimately kills him. It's quite interesting that, you know, anybody who reads the Batman comics will know that Batman has a rule where he won't kill anyone. Yeah, I think some people need to read the Frank Miller Batman comics to find that that's not quite the case. But a lot of the Bat characters have always followed that rule. I will never take another life. So to see Kate, who is Batwoman, actually take a life absolutely destroys her, but she loses it. So it's quite interesting to see how Kate, as Batwoman, will go forward after taking a life. Now, we know she didn't mean to do it, but it is a very interesting moment, to say the least. So it is going to be interesting how this will play out over the course of the next few episodes. Jacob and Alice arrive on the scene, and Alice closes August's eyes, remarking to Jacob that both of his daughters are now killers. Kate goes outside to drink and almost texts Sophie, but decides against it. Alice joins her and remarks that they have a problem on their hands. They now have to bury August's body, and that's pretty much how this episode ends. So we see both sisters sitting there drinking as they contemplate what happens next. Overall, very good episode, much better than episode 14. As I said, very dark in some places, quite gory, and a real game changer in terms of Kate taking another life. So as I said earlier, it's going to be very interesting how they will handle this and address it going forward in the next few episodes. So that's enough from me. I'm going to wrap this up now and drop this here for you guys. What did you think of episode 15? Did you think it was good? Was there any favourite moments of yours? What's your thoughts on Kate taking another person's life? You know what to do. hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time to talk about episode 16. So till then, take care everybody and stay safe.